Greetings! Welcome to CIBER Focus, your source for international business information. I'm your host, Christopher Rice. Our guest today is Shoeb Kagda. Mr. Kagda is an Indonesia-based entrepreneur and media consultant specializing in co-creating content. He's the founder of several businesses, including Globe Asia, Indonesia's first magazine published in English, as well as Synthesis Indonesia, a media and political consulting firm. 4 years ago, Shoeb also founded the Indonesia Economic Forum, which is a platform for leaders to explore the opportunities for economic growth within the Southeast Asian region. He graduated from Indiana University with majors in political science and journalism. Today, Shoeb will share his insights on economic opportunity in the fast-growing Indonesia, as well as his experiences as an entrepreneur in the country. Shoeb, thank you so much for coming in to speak with us. Pleasure to
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
To start out, Indonesia is the fourth most populous country in the world, and it has a rapidly growing economy. What's important for other countries to understand about the success in Indonesia and the resilience the country has shown in the 1990s and then recently as well?
Indonesia has come on a long journey since '98 when we had the financial and political crisis. Today it's a vibrant democracy. It's a fast-growing economy based on capital markets and free enterprise. Although the government is still very heavily involved in the economy, but the space for the private sector has opened up tremendously. It has one of the fastest growing middle class in the world. Today you have what they call a consuming class of about 50 million. This is expected to double in the next 30 years. So you'll have a 100 million consuming class market with very few countries in the world can offer. And at the moment, most importantly, it has what we call a demographic dividend. 60% of the population is under 30 years of age, which means that this 60%, so Indonesia's population is 260 million, so you're looking at over 100 million plus people are going to be getting new jobs, spending money, getting married, having families. So can you imagine, it's like the baby boom generation in the United States. That's what created this boom. So Indonesia is on that, what we call upward curve before aging starts to set in. But we've got a 30-year runway to grow the economy.
Well, speaking of 30 years, I think PwC projected Indonesia to be the fourth largest economy in the world by 2050. What actors do you think can kind of help push that along?
Well, I think there are two things now that are very exciting about Indonesia. One is the growth of the digital economy. So we have one of the most tech-savvy populations on earth. We call ourselves Facebook Nation because everyone's on Facebook. And a lot of things happen on Facebook, not just social communications, but a lot of business is done on Facebook, on Twitter. New entrepreneurs coming up, don't even have brick and mortar. It's all online. The online economy is growing at 16% annually, compared to GDP growth of only 5%. So it's 3 times GDP growth. So it's huge. So what's happened is technology, changing consumer habits, and I think new ideas coming in to Indonesia is creating basically what I would call a revolution in the economy. It's transforming rapidly.
Yeah. Great. So based on your experience as an entrepreneur, what do you see as some of the best areas for business opportunities in Indonesia? Well,
I think, again, if we focus on the digital economy, within the digital economy, you have fintech. So only 39% of Indonesia's population have bank accounts. So it's very difficult to get a bank account, right? If you don't have bank accounts, how do you transact? You won't get credit cards, right? You can't transfer money. But with financial technology firms coming in now, you find that a lot of Indonesians are able to transact without having a bank account. So that's opened up the market.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? I mean, you have 60% of the population now suddenly becoming consumers, right? Because previously they were not consumers. So that's a huge upside. You have transportation, telecommunication infrastructure is badly needed. So if businesses can provide new solutions to with using technology in transportation, telecommunications, what we call agri-tech, technology in agriculture, because it's a huge agricultural economy still. But these are the new opportunities. So similar industries, but with infusion of technology, and probably new business models are important, right? So it's not just the same old business model. The business model is changing. And a lot of these new companies coming in, for example, co-working spaces, right? It's a new business model. But the physical asset is still there, it's the building. But the business model has changed. So if WeWork is a global space sharing office company based in the United States. They're huge in Indonesia. But they compete with local players. But it's that kind of growth and opportunity. And if you come in with that kind of idea and new business models, I think you'll do well.
Very interesting. What would you say are some of the key barriers to entry within Indonesia, and how can you expect the country to overcome them?
Well, I think the key barrier really is regulation.
Regulation?
It's a very tightly regulated market, although it's been opening up. When we say this, is also we always must look at the context and the fact that we are talking in relative terms.
Yes.
More bureaucratic, less bureaucratic compared to what, right? Compared to which other countries. So, but it's a challenge. So if you come to Indonesia, at the moment, for example, you would need an average of 1,000 licenses to start a business.
1,000?
But some of them are a group, right? But if you break them up, there are 1,000 licenses that you need from multiple ministries, multiple government departments, right? So currently the government is now looking at how do you consolidate all of these into one, and they call it a one-stop system. Now, a great idea. Execution is a different issue.
I was going to say, is this making progress?
It's making progress, but not as fast as we would like as entrepreneurs. But I think it's also important to look at the direction the country is going. If it was going the other way, then I'd be worried, right? But it's going forward in a sense that government recognizes these issues that hamper business, and they're looking for solutions. But it's a big country. We are stretched from east to west. We stretch 5,000 kilometers. 3 time zones, 17,000 islands. So think about the magnitude of the management of a country like that. It's like the United States, right? You can't just say one system for everybody. So you have to have the right mix.
Okay. Great. Well, speaking of moving forward, Indonesia's growth has slowed a little in the last 5 years, and the country is still trying to establish itself as an international economic powerhouse. How is the Indonesia Economic Forum approaching development and integration in the region? And what effect do you expect next year's presidential elections to have on these issues?
Well, the economy is growing at 5% at the moment, which is a natural growth. It can actually grow at 7-8%, which would be better, but there are certain challenges. So at the Indonesia Economic Forum, what we do is we bring all stakeholders together. So we bring government, private sector, academia, civil society, to look at, how do we remove roadblocks that hamper business? How do we empower entrepreneurs? How do we make sure that we have greater diversity of views within the system? So we also look at, like I said, growth sectors. So we help investors identify growth sectors where they can invest. This year we've also started what we call the regional series, where we are going to different cities in the country. What we have provinces, you have states. So we are going to different provinces. And identifying opportunities in those provinces, and also at the same time identifying the competitive advantage of each of these provinces, right? So in a way, we are helping business, both domestic and global, to get a better understanding of the forces at work in Indonesia, and more importantly, to identify opportunities.
Yes. How about the presidential elections next year? What effect do you expect those to have?
Well, this would be the fourth direct presidential election. So we've had direct elections for the last 15 years. I would like to see Indonesia having a mature democracy in terms of when power transfers from one president to another, it's smooth.
Yes.
Okay, businesses will be a little bit, uncertain in terms of new direction, but you do not expect a violent transfer of power because that really hurts the country.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Governments may change direction, left or right a little bit, move here, move there, different priorities. But I think what is important is to understand that today Indonesia is a mature democracy. And this will be the third transfer of power from one president to another, right? We've had two past transfers of power which have ended violently, right? In the 1960s when the first president, Sukarno, transferred power to Suharto, and in 1998 when Suharto fell. Yeah. But since then we haven't had for the past 20 years. So I think if you want to talk about, if you want to look at elections and the impact it has on business, that would be what I would focus on. In terms of policies, I think there is not much of an ideological difference between the current incumbent and his challenger. Yeah. If he happens to win, the general direction of the economy is that, like I said, we move towards opening up to globe. It's always been open, but it's a pendulum, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it switches a bit too much to one direction and they try and bring it back to the center. So I think that's what's happening. And
continuing to encourage fintech, agritech, these sorts of areas.
I think that is irreversible. Yep. It's going to happen. One of the things that, when I speak to some government officials, senior ministers, they understand that if they don't deregulate, the country will move without them. Right? Because you don't need them. So they become irrelevant in a way. So you better be relevant and move with the tide, Yeah. So they understand that, which I think is an important point.
Very interesting, Shoeb. Thanks a lot for coming
Thank you so much.
That's all for this edition of Cyber Focus. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any comments or suggestions for future topics, please let us know at CIBER, that's CIBER, cyber, @indiana.edu.